Good evening, everybody. It's my honor to start Satsang today with a mantra. And if you feel drawn and your heart is singing also, you can sing along with me. Ganesha Deva Jai Durga Uma Parvati Ananda Mahima Om Namah Shivaya Shiva Mahadeva Shambho Om Namah Shivaya Om Namah Shivaya Mahadeva Shambho. Jai Ganesha Deva Jai Durga Ma Uma Parvati Ananda Mahima Om Namah Shivaya Om Namah Shivaya Mahadeva Shambho 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 Om Namah Shivaya Om Namah Shivaya Mahadeva Shambho Shambho. Jai Ganesha Deva Jai Durga Ma Uma Parvati Ananda Mahima Om Namah Shivaya Om Namah Shivaya Mahadeva Shambho Om Namah Shivaya Om Namah Shivaya Mahadeva Shambho 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 Shambho. Jai Ganesha Deva Jai Durga Ma Uma Parvati Ananda Mahima Ananda Mahima Ananda Mahima Om Namah Shivaya Om Namah Shivaya Mahadeva Shambho Shiva Madeva Shambho. Om Namah Shiva Madeva Shambho. Om Namah Shiva Madeva Shambho. Shambho, Shambho. Om Namah Shiva Madeva Shambho. Jai Jai Ganesha Deva. Jai Durga Ma. Parvati Ananda Mahima, Ananda Mahima. Om Namah Shivaya. Om Namah Shiva Madeva Shambho. Om Namah Shivaya. Om Namah Shiva Madeva Shambho. 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 Thank you, Joy, for blessing us with this wonderful mantra. And hello, everyone. Hello, dear friends. It is good to walk together into this satsang hand in hand. Satsang is about being together. It is not talking about something, not even attempting to understand something. It is rather about the quality of presence that we bring to this meeting, and the way our many different presences gradually become absorbed in the greater presence.
So allow yourself in this evening to get in touch with deeper feelings, even if they are elusive feelings. A realm of subtle energies, and above all, the purity of being. Usually I don't refer to events outside the satsang, but in this case it is highly relevant to start with telling you this, that in about a month from now, a certain school, an 8-month journey is going to begin, the school of human potential. So it's all about understanding and experiencing the 7 dimensions of life. The 7 dimensions of life that compose the human experience and that help us realize the meaning of life. Most importantly, it's all about how to learn to live all these different 7 dimensions in a harmonious and unified way. So it's 7 dimensions, and then there is the 7th dimension, which is the subtlest and most spiritual one, and the 7th dimension is the one that is the closest to the light of infinity. It has a representation in our body, which is the crown chakra, and the crown chakra is situated in such a way that it is exactly the borderline between our mind and our body and infinite space. And there is an interesting point that for this particular school, I've made a choice to start teaching by delving into the 7th dimension, which means not from the first, most basic dimension, but from the 7th, teaching the dimensions in this a so-called opposite order. And why is that? This is because this dimension is like the light that is pouring over all other dimensions. It is the absolute reality that constitutes the ground on which life's experience appears and into which life's experience disappears. And in this sense, as it is sometimes said, we are like an opposite tree, because our roots begin in the heavens. And the top of our tree, the tree of our being, reaches all the way to the earthly ground. So I'm starting with all this because satsang is an expression of the seventh dimension. That's what we do in satsang. We're actually celebrating the seventh dimension, celebrating the point of beginning, this ground of existence prior to the Big Bang, as it were, prior to the grand diversification, multiplication. And there are many good reasons to need to return to this ground and rest on it. It's actually an essential component of our human existence, without which we can, to a certain extent, we might lose our sanity without it. So this evening we are going to focus on one good reason to return to rest in the seventh dimension. And we are going to meditate on it, and it's going to become our meditation, because every satsang is actually a meditation, not a talk, not a lecture. Even though I'm pouring out many words, don't get confused. We are meditating. And before we are going to center our attention on this one of the many good reasons to rest on the ground of the seventh dimension, let's meditate. Let's have a relatively short guided meditation. And we're going to start with a meditation that has a lot to do with today's exploration. I think that by the end of the satsang we will understand why we've chosen this meditation. So we are going to start with a meditation that is called Mahamudra meditation. And the Mahamudra meditation is one of the simplest, most direct forms of meditation, because all we do is we innocently turn our attention to the nature of our mind. We look at our mind with our mind. We look into our mind It's something that we rarely do, because for the most part our attention is turned to things in the world, right? We turn our mind toward things in the world. This is where all the trouble begins, because our mind becomes entangled with things in the world. Instead, what we do now is we turn our mind to our mind, using very simple questions. Now, these questions may sound to you a little funny, but just follow them innocently and see what happens. So let's begin. We can close our eyes for this brief meditation, and we're going to make sure that our mind is loose, like an open hand. not inwardly and mentally wrinkled, not making an effort, just looking. So first look into the mind and ask yourself, does the mind have any kind of shape? For example, is it round, like a circle? Is it square? Is it perhaps the shape of the ground? The shape of a rock? Or the shape of a person? Does the mind have any form to it at all? Does it take the form of the experiences that continually arise? That is, does it have an ever-changing form? Or does it have a fixed form? Or no form at all? If you are certain that the concept of shape or form does not apply to your mind, and that the mind has no form at all, rest in this knowledge. Now, look into the mind again and examine, does it have any color? Is it blue? Or green? Red? Black? Or white? Or does it perhaps have multiple colors? If you realize that the mind has no color at all, and that the concept of color doesn't apply to your mind, rest in this understanding. So now look again. Does the mind have anything that supports it from the outside? or from the inside? Does it stem from a material object or from anyone else? Perhaps it stems from the brain's activity. Does the mind dwell anywhere? Does it rest on a part of the body or permeate the entire body? Is it inside or outside the form of the body? Or both inside and outside the body at the same time? In short, does the mind have any location? And pay attention, how can something with no shape or form have a location? If you do find any location of the mind, go inside this location and find its boundary. Whenever you find a location that seems to correspond to the mind, go inside this location and open it up. So look again. What is the mind's existential mode? Is it like an open space? If so, is it completely empty? How does it compare to a completely open space? Is it imbued with a lucid, knowing quality? How does it compare to the luminosity of the sun? Is it an inner luminosity? Is there any sense of inner or outer to it at all? Is it an open lucidity without form, without color, without location in time and space? If you realize that the nature of the mind is undefinable and beyond imagination or intellectual comprehension, rest in this knowledge. As you reside in this self-knowing awareness, feel for a moment the bliss of this spaciousness, this openness without edge, without center. It really is available to us. And slowly come out of the meditation, or just remain with your eyes closed. It doesn't matter. As we said, it's just meditating together. And still I will speak. So, I'm going to start with one of my favorite sentences ever. It's one of my favorite quotes. It's from the Bhagavad Gita. Bhagavad Gita, a classical Indian scripture. Probably you've at least heard of it. And the Bhagavad Gita is a very dramatic encounter between Lord Krishna, who is half a deity, half a human being, a sort of spiritual mentor with divine origin, and he stands there, he sits with Arjuna, a warrior who has the very disturbing destiny of needing to fight in battle against his own relatives, family, spiritual mentors, and so on and so on. And Arjuna feels great despair, and he doesn't want to start the fight. And Krishna begins to teach him why he should fulfill his duty without attachment. So, of course, we're not going to talk about the Bhagavad Gita. It's just the context. But one of the first sentences that Krishna tells Arjuna is such a beautiful sentence that I cherish so much. Krishna says, there has never been a time when you and I and the kings gathered here have not existed, nor will there be a time when we will cease to exist. Listen to it again. There has never been a time when you and I have not existed, nor will there be a time when we will cease to exist. What a strange sentence to tell our thinking minds, right? Because our thinking minds, of course, we comprehend only the reality of birth and death, of beginning and end, and here we are hearing that there has never been a time that we have not existed, and there will never be a time in which we will cease to exist. So this sentence leads us to a very different type of existence. Unceasing existence that has no end, that has no beginning. And if you listen to it, you think, but of course this body will cease to exist in its familiar form. But if I meditate on this sentence, it leads me to a very different type of existence. It's an existence that transcends all changes of form, all birth and death, all the celebration of birth, the grief of death. It's like an infinite moment. A moment, one moment that is everything, that encapsulate all times and no time at all, you see? No beginning, no end. And we now that we are meeting in the very same moment that Arjuna and Krishna met, you see? It doesn't matter. So in this kind of existence, there is no death, there is only life. Life in the sense of the constant unfolding of this moment. Forms may change continuously, but we will never taste death, you see? And because we were also never born in the limiting sense of the term. So this is how Krishna more or less starts his speech. And this is, I think, really confusing for someone like Arjuna, who is now facing a very difficult moral dilemma, and they are actually sitting in the midst of battle, you see, in the midst of a battlefield, at the heart of a complete havoc, complete chaos, and at the heart of the world, at the heart of the chaos of the world. And you hear, there has never been a time in which we have not existed. There will never be a time in which we will cease to exist. This is what Krishna says. What a grounding statement. And this is actually what Satsang is all about. meeting in this kind of infinite moment. The boundaries that we create in the moment, all these fences that create a certain limited time and space and birth and death, this is only what our minds create. Because really we have always been here and now. And it's really important to have this kind of timelessness or all transcending sense of time. And this here we are entering one of the most important reasons that we need to be in touch with this kind of infinite moment without edge, without beginning. And this is because too often we said that at the very beginning, we get entangled with time, entangled with life's events and the world's events, you see. We are glued to time and space, to changes. And I think that for many people, there is a sense that in the past few years, the world seems to be getting crazy or becoming severely unbalanced, you see, because we have had in the past few years many collective crises, right? We have had the pandemic and all the chaos around it. We've had wars, and there is global warming, and there is this kind of populistic politics, and the experience of that the truth is collapsing, that there is, and so on and so on. We have all this constant sense. And I think with our social media, where there is endless commentary, you see, there is a constant sense of time and movement and reaction. And you see, without a tremendously strong presence of the seventh dimension in our consciousness, we can become, without even much consciousness, we can become a product of our time. What does it mean to be a product of time? A product of time means that our consciousness, our mind, is shaped by time, is shaped by events. Get in touch with this kind of experience, because you may be noticing this kind of dynamic. Certain events take place in the world. We react to these events emotionally and mentally, right? We are shaken by these events. And very often there are many good reasons to be shaken by these events, to be shocked, to be stunned, to be horrified. So we react to these events. And this is actually, through this process of constant reaction, this is how our inner world and the outer world create each other. This is a very subtle process, you see. It's when we are very little children, the outer shapes our inner world. It actually creates our inner world because we keep reacting to the world through impressions. Then the outer that is created by the inner that is created by the outer continues to react to the outer, and so on, you see. And this is how these two are created and appear together. They are always appear together, me and the world. Me and the world. And me reacts to the world reacts to me, and it's like an endless circle in which eventually my consciousness receives the shape of events, you see. I am beginning to be shaped by circumstances, including, by the way, collective traumas. So my existence completely depends on the circumstances and whatever takes place. This is a world of unending reaction, you see. And everyone, there's so much noise, everyone is constantly reacting. There are circumstances, then there is a reaction, and then there is a reaction to the reaction, and so on. And the more we react, the more intensely we experience the influences, the effects. We begin to be filled with despair, anxiety, rage, and I think most of all, helplessness or powerlessness, because we are quite powerless in the face of events. And this is where this kind of dimension, this perspective is so essential, because we are missing an out of time, a cosmic perspective. A perspective that really can contain all these events with totality and wisdom. What does that mean? For instance, if I constantly react to events, I can begin to think that the world is continuously getting worse. Sometimes I think, oh my God, the world is going crazy, everything is collapsing, it has never been like that. Really? It has never been like that? Not at all. Truth is that it has always been like that. From the very beginning of Homo sapiens, it has always been a space, an arena of tireless power struggles, especially between those really powerful elements of the world, of which we have very little control. So from the beginning of time, there has been this kind of tireless noise as a result of this friction between contradictory, conflicting desires. That's the story of history. That's the story of humankind. Every generation, it seemed as if things are getting worse. Every generation lamented that the world is going crazy, that we are losing it, every generation seems to be facing some kind of catastrophe. So if I'm starting to have this kind of you can call it a trans-historical perspective, I can see beyond my very limited perspective, my time-bound perspective. I will begin to look at it from a far more non-attached view, angle. And I have to have this view, you see. This tremendous, timeless view that is not shaken by this event or that event, as terrible as it may be. Now, what makes it even worse is that we get carried away by falling into these struggles. We begin to take sides. We begin to become strongly identified only with one side, thus dividing the world into us and them. Us and them. Now the whole world is divided into us and them. So this means that probably everyone is right and everyone is wrong, right? But whoever is on the side of the us is always convinced with complete certainty, without absolutely any doubt, that they are on the right side. Us is the right side. They is the wrong side. So there is a reaction. And there is this kind of sense of very limited perspective that something is really terribly wrong with the world that we live in, exceptionally wrong, this generation, this time. And 3, there is this kind of division in the mind, us and them. Now, of course, you may say, I actually don't care about anything that is happening in the world. I'm indifferent. I don't even watch the news. I don't read anything. So I'm not interested. But that's being completely indifferent is also just a form of reaction, you see, because first of all, sooner or later, you might turn into a part of the news. This means that the news will come to you. You will not come to the news. You will be a part of the happening, and the world sometimes tends to involve us in the happening. Second, it is really essential to study the world around us and within us. This is a part of self-knowledge. If I want to know how to respond to challenges, I have to be aware. I have to be conscious. Consciousness is not just consciousness, I don't know, of my own private world. It's general consciousness. I'm conscious of where I am, what is going on. I'm awake. And the third thing is that being completely disconnected implies shutting down or closing my heart completely to the suffering of the world. And I have to be in touch with the suffering of the world, because this is very often an engine that ignites our actions, our involvement. So I have to leave my heart engaged. I have to leave it open to the world. So the solution is not to simply close the window, stop reading anything. That's the easy solution. Remember what Arjuna and Krishna teaches this in the middle of a battlefield. And in a sense, the world can be sometimes a battlefield, and we are in the midst of this battlefield, and we need to learn how to have this kind of involvement without becoming completely shaped by events. I also study the world in which I live in a very awake way, very attentive way, learning what is happening, but always making sure that this consciousness, this mind remains in the most profound sense untouched, timeless. Now, every generation becomes shaped, you see, by the events, the values, the fashions, and also the technology of their time. Right? So every generation is born, then there are certain values, certain trends, certain technologies, and they are shaped. So without noticing, we become a product. We become the result of time. That's why, for instance, everyone nowadays thinks that being traumatized and having this kind of victim, the sense of a victim, what others have done to me, that this is obvious. This is a timeless truth. It's an absolute perspective. But this is just a very new perspective. And at a certain point, it will also change. So now everyone speaks in the language of trauma, victimhood, and so on and so on. And we need to go through our traumas. Just several generations ago, everyone spoke in the language of sin, or what I have committed, you see? The terrible deeds that I have done. So we don't understand how we are shaped by certain trends. We speak the language of our time. Now everyone thinks that they should design themselves as an object in social media, for instance. When we go to places, we make sure we take photos of ourselves because we think of ourselves as a certain product that we present to the world, and so on and so on. These are just two examples. But when you begin to look at life, at the world, from this kind of transgenerational perspective, not belonging to this generation or to that generation, you are beginning to notice all these trends. Always picture to yourself how in the very same way you could have been born in a different age and in a different culture, a different religion, a different body, different circumstances, and your entire worldview would have completely changed, right? So there is something so random about it. But the trouble is that our consciousness is born into this kind of random circumstance, random circumstantial reality, and then it becomes completely identified with it until it can no longer know itself independently. And always remember, also when you die, you abandon in the middle your particular circumstances, right? You suddenly disconnect from the stream of history. And suddenly you have nothing to do with it anymore. All these events that you have been so busy reacting to, engaging yourself to, being troubled by, being angered by, and so on, now you're saying goodbye. It's none of your business anymore. You leave it to the rest of the world. They will be worried now. So we cannot take these things too seriously. You see, we have to have this kind of sufficient freedom And that's what the seventh dimension grants us. It grants us a perspective in which Earth, the whole of Earth, is just a tiny dot in space, you see? A tiny dot in space. It's the cosmologist Carl Sagan had this kind of classical text, remarkable text about, he called it the pale blue dot. It's a perspective outside of Earth. So in the very same way, in meditation, in inquiry into our consciousness and satsang, we are beginning to have this kind of very distant vision of the whole noisy world. And as you move further and further away, you hear less and less the noise, you see, until you hear only profound stillness. And from this perspective, you understand there is no point in reacting so hysterically to these different fluctuations, these different changes of form. Forms appear and disappear all the time. This is the broad perspective, the ultimate perspectives. you have this kind of ancient or timeless, it's the choose choose the one you like the most. This ancient or timeless vision in which you see how empires rise and fall and rise and fall and rise and fall, and perhaps if you're a Shiva, then you see also universes form and dissolve and shatter, universes, you know, like stars that are born and die, not really die. Nothing dies in the universe, only changes form. So can I have this kind of timeless vision? You see all these empires that rise and fall, and all these stars that form and change form, all these take place in the one consciousness that accompanies the world, follows the world, contains the world, and that will remain also after the world is completely gone. But here is the beautiful surprise: this consciousness is you. This consciousness that has been from the beginning of time. Yes, when there were dinosaurs and when there was the Big Bang and before that, and this kind of timeless ancient consciousness is right now embodied as in us, as the observer in us, this part that looks at life, that is aware of life. And this awareness is also this kind of timeless, ancient gaze from the outside, from outside the world, outside time. We just don't inquire into it, you see. We don't look into it enough, and we let it become so blended into the world events, into time, and we don't make enough efforts, conscious efforts, to disengage it from the stream of time, the stream of history, and let it be what it is. Do you remember this meditation that we had at the beginning, the Mahamudra? This is, now we can perhaps understand it. It's a meditation that removes all our misconceptions about what the mind is, and helps us reveal this mind as timeless, formless, without beginning, without end. Remember, there has never been a time that we haven't existed. nor will there ever be the time in which we will cease to exist. So all the world events appear and disappear within this Buddha consciousness. Appear and disappear, but the mind itself has no form. It is a complete mistake to let the mind take the form of situations, events, circumstances, past, self-image. Keep it free. We have to be in touch with this tremendous territory within our consciousness, within our mind, that is utterly unshaped by time. Time cannot reach it. And as far as it is concerned, you can even say nothing has ever happened. So it is deeply unhealthy and deeply unreal to allow our consciousness all the time to become so closely related to events, including our own events, you see. If we let that happen, we will experience a burnout, mentally, emotionally, energetically, spiritually. On the other hand, if we keep this quality of timelessness, it will allow us to experience a rock-like stability in the midst of the world, you see, in the midst of a battlefield, and genuine freedom. You will actually feel that you are able to withstand all upheavals, all the ups and downs of the world, all the wars, all the catastrophes, it doesn't matter how much the world seems to be upside down. And you will be able to allow yourself to remain involved while staying completely free, you see? You will not close the window. You will not turn your back on the events. You will be engaged. You will be involved. You will be awake. You will be responsive, but you will not be the events. Be the stream of time. So try to ask yourself together with me now, in this infinite moment, without boundary, without beginning or end, who would I be if my mind was not polluted by any of the world events. So let's see what questions you may have. You can send any written questions to Carlos and Nir, and they will. There is already a question. That's quick. Yes, please.
From Koa, I hope I said the name correctly.
Okay.
How
Hello.
can compassion be developed in this state of detachment?
Again, the question, yes?
How can compassion be developed in this state of detachment?
That's a very beautiful question. And it's also very natural to ask and very sensitive of you to ask, how does compassion arise in this kind of timelessness and spacelessness or openness? Because we often think that we have to be very close to the events and very reactive in order to feel. We think that our heart, when it is steeped in this kind of spaciousness, that it begins to lose its sensitivity. And sometimes, in a way, I think we are even afraid of sinking too much into this kind of space, because we feel almost as if we're betraying something, as if we are betraying the world events, as if we are we are indulging in some kind of a narcissistic inward turn, right? So it's as if I don't care about anything, I'm just having fun, bliss in my inner world. But and you know what is really beautiful is that when we think, for instance, of the figure of the Buddha, we always think of the Buddha as both this kind of pure mind and this kind of unchanging mind, but also the source of compassion, right? This kind of universal compassion. So, first of all, it's very important to understand when I have this kind of spaciousness, of this kind of openness without edge, I'm also beginning to experience certain qualities. This space is not neutral in the sense of empty. Do you remember that we asked at the beginning in the meditation, is the mind empty as in empty space? And if you're noticing, it's not empty in the sense of there's nothing there. It is empty only in the sense that it is spacious enough to contain everything. Now, what is the definition of compassion? It's the ability to include others in our circle of empathy. So, when you are entering this kind of spaciousness, this kind of openness, you are beginning to realize that there are certain qualities. One, you become available. When you are available, your sensitivity is actually heightened. You are more attentive. You have more space in you to accommodate. Two, you get to know what love is. Love. What is love? We have made love this kind of extremely limited emotion that we have towards people that we personally cherish. But this is not the origin of love. This is not the complete nature of love. Because the complete nature of love is when there is no more inner and outer. There is no more division. There is just a totality of being in which everything is included. There is no more center of yourself separate from all the others. That's when love appears. So availability, love, and from these two, compassion arises. Compassion is this combination of now you know what love is, you know what bliss is, but you also don't have a division. So all this is not for you, just for you. It exists only in sharing. You can't keep it to yourself because in this space there is no yourself separate from others. You don't even think of others when you love or you're compassionate because it's a natural exchange. You don't think, oh, now I'm going to help others. Now I'm going to save others. You are functioning, operating within this one space. So this is where compassion arises. When I'm answering you, it is you and I, we are sharing this very consciousness, and we are operating in this consciousness, in this unified field. We have no nothing that separates us, no distance. It is a natural, spontaneous exchange within this kind of energy field. And this is the quality of compassion. Thank you. Yes.
So there is a question, but I don't know the name. Ah, sorry, Dorothea.
Dorothea, yes.
It's in German, so I'm translating.
Good.
Where is the room for the feminine energy in a spirituality that is based primarily on meditation? There is much talk of the spirit, but what role does the soul play as the feminine counterpart? Or the energies of refuge, protection, security, maturing, healing, and gentle power. In the Hindu faith, the female goddesses and their different energies are celebrated on Navaratri nights. In shamanism, the female mother goddess plays a leading role. Can we integrate some of this into a spiritual practice? And if so, how?
Yes, that's a very important question. Well, I think there also your questions seem to be similar, these two questions. Now, I think I started this satsang by talking about the seventh dimension, and I think that I mentioned 7 dimensions, right? And that's exactly a part of the answer, and that's why the answer can be either very short or very long, extremely long, because this is what you are pointing out, Dorothea, is this kind of complexity that we have. Complexity inside us that is not complication, complexity, richness of our being. As you beautifully say, it is often this complexity is represented by different deities, and that's why we have different deities and not just one, right? These are different representations, each embodying certain qualities of our one Buddha nature, our one true being, because it is multifaceted. It is not just one, it is not just meditation. So we need to understand, first of all, that it's very important to allow ourselves at least sometimes to be able to go as far as possible into this kind of unified or field without that is this kind of timeless awareness where all emotions as we know them disappear. This helps us to realize this kind of purity of being or purity of mind. It is important to know this, even if a certain part of us screams, hey, but what about emotions, or what about the feminine part, or what about the soul, or what about love? We don't need to worry as long as we are choosing consciously a holistic path, you see? So we have to be total when we meditate. Sometimes when we meditate, we have to sacrifice all the other talk, you see? We say all about the feminine and about the soul and about emotions and about compassion. We have to say that I'm transcending all this. I'm transcending all the concepts, all that which needs to to not be neglected and so on, I'm not afraid. Let's enter this kind of absolute reality. And why would I need to worry if the divine itself, as a fact, has this kind of, it's like a ground of the ocean. On the ground of the ocean, there is no movement, you see? There is no movement, no attributes. Then later, when you move closer to the surface, the more you move, the closer you move to the surface, the richer the divine becomes, you see, with experiences and with duality and with soul and with love and so on and so on. So we need to know the ground of the divine, this kind of absolute. And then we also need to learn to combine our heart, the awakening of our heart, on a fully integrated spiritual path, you see? And so we need to understand these are different layers of the same divinity. They are not contradictory. It's not either or. And we have in our own being this kind of multi-layered divinity. So we have a crown chakra, but we have a heart chakra. In the heart chakra, you find the soul. In the crown chakra, you find this timeless or ancient consciousness without beginning, without end, that is even prior to the soul, you see? So that's the short answer to your question, because your question is a big one. Yes, thank you.
Question from Amy.
Yes, Amy.
What are practices that help us to access the beautiful peace of resting in the eternal and timeless, even as our mind perceives things as devolving and destructive?
So again, please read the question.
What are practices that help us to access the beautiful peace of resting in the eternal and timeless, even as our mind perceives things as devolving and destructive?
Yes, that's a lovely way to phrase it. Yes, that because you're mentioning that our mind interprets things as devolving and destructive, and that's already a mature way to put it, right? My mind perceives it in this way. I think, I have this kind of feeling, this kind of interpretation that everything goes wrong. Now, I don't know if everything goes wrong because I have such a limited and in a way, hysterical perspective. I react so from a certain survival mode that is afraid of losing what it has. So, what are the practices? There are many different practices. One is, and here any kind of meditation that takes me beyond or leads me back to the purity of the mind could work, because it is as if I am moving behind the different layers of the mind where contradiction still exists. So one is, for instance, the Mahamudra meditation. I am looking into the mind with my mind, and very quickly, if I'm sensitive, if I'm open, if I'm available, very quickly my mind is revealed as the space in which everything takes place, rather there's the limited thought that reacts to everything. So that's one, an instant reminder. Second is what is traditionally called the inner cave of the heart, because my heart has 3 layers. One is the outermost layer that really reacts to the world of dark and light, and divides the world into light and dark, and feels that it is a part of this struggle. So it is constantly in this kind of defense mechanism and in a survival mode of self-protection. If we move through the heart superficial layer, and through the middle part of the heart, where we have these kind of deeply ingrained interpretations, we eventually tap into the innermost core of the heart, where it is really unbeaten, unstruck by life's events. Now, the beautiful thing is that every meditation, it doesn't have to be a specific practice. Every meditation does that, you see? Because every meditation, if done consciously, I'm sitting with this kind of consciousness. Now I am stepping into the timeless. The timeless in which empires rise and fall, and yet it always just is. In this way, if I have this kind of intention, my meditation becomes exactly that. And one last thing is, always question. This is perhaps not a practice, but this is just a mode of questioning. Always question when you have this feeling that everything goes wrong, that the things are collapsing, that the world is moving into a dark space, a dark era, whatever, that we are heading catastrophe. Always remind yourself, almost every generation has had this kind of feelings, this kind of drama. So question, is what I'm seeing really true? Do I really know? Am I 100% certain that this is what I'm seeing? And I think this is also intermixed with a certain hope that the world is perhaps, on the other hand, moving to a wonderful condition, that it's evolving. And we have to let go of both perspectives. One is a consoling perspective, the other one is this kind of anxious perspective. Perhaps the world is neither evolving nor devolving, you see. If I remove both the hope and the fear, I simply begin to become one with life as it is. I remove any kind of filter, any kind of interpretation, and I just observe events without conclusions. That's the mind of the Buddha. Observation, no reaction, listening, and response. And that is better than any practice, if I'm able to catch myself falling into the trap and noticing how my mind loses its natural pristine quality. Thank you. Yes.
A question from Francisca.
Yes, Francisca.
If I understood correctly, you just said one should stay responsive in these events, but not reactive. Because the more we are reactive, the more we become one with that event. Can you say something more about the difference?
Yes, that's a wonderful question. Yes, it's you've been sensitive, and you've noticed this kind of subtle, because sometimes we use reaction and response interchangeably, but there is a tremendous difference. What is reaction? Reaction is an automatic categorization of my thought. Reaction is an almost involuntarily uncontrolled type of I don't have another word for reaction, so I'm looking for that makes me actually inattentive. I don't step aside, removing my automatic reactions, classifications, judgments, me and them, all these kinds of instincts and emotions that put the guise of thoughts. You see, they seem like intellectual thoughts, but they're really just instincts. They're just involuntarily emotions, untreated past reactions and imprints, and so on and so on. So reactions is basically the past pretends to respond to the present. You see? That's reaction. It's not really listening, and it's not really studying the situation, because it already has a stored response. Because we're made of these reactions, you see. Our bodies are made of these involuntarily uncontrolled responses. We are triggered. Everything is already worked out inside our mind. Everything is classified, categorized. And this is because we are so afraid of sitting silently with our bare awareness in front of something. Not judging, not concluding, not letting rage, hate, hysteria, anxiety take over, pollute our mind. Now, from this state, I'm beginning to take a look at the whole situation, you see, not just a part of it, not what I like or dislike. I don't divide the situation, I begin to look at it, to understand it with my heart and with my awakened mind. And it's always a combination of heart and mind. It's a compassionate observation, but it's holistic. And then you look at it. And if you are really look at it and you understand it. And if you understand it, you are ready for the next step. That is what is called response. Response is, how can I benefit the situation? How can I contribute to the situation? What does the situation need from me? Does it require my involvement? If it requires my involvement in any way, then there comes a response, you see? A response means that out of listening, out of this kind of attentive, compassionate listening, I understand what my part is and how I can promote the situation, if I can do that at all. But for response to appear, you have to first of all be very aware of all the reactions, you see? That's the trick. First, most people are not aware of the reactions. They are the reactions, and our social media is filled with it, you see? It's just reactions and reactions to reactions, and everything is just a complete unconscious stream of thought that really leads us nowhere. It only breeds conflict, further conflict. Response aims to resolve a conflict, and it doesn't create another conflict, you see? Reaction always breeds another reaction. It always steers, because it is itself a conflict with reality. It is not, it is unsettled, it is devoid of compassionate attention. Perhaps there is one last question? Yes.
From Bettina.
Yes, Bettina.
So I can stay with an open heart and be the eternal being?
Oh, you can only stay with an open heart if you are the eternal being, you see? The truly open heart is the outcome of the eternal being. What is the open heart? Let's ask, what is an open heart? You see, I can be, with an open heart conditionally when people are very nice to me, when there is a safe space, when feel welcomed, when there is, I feel perhaps that people like me, and then I open my heart. Or perhaps I open my heart when I feel that I sympathize with people's pain because I recognize it as my own, you see. That's the so I feel this kind of intimacy because I know their pain, because I know it from within myself. But what is a truly open heart? A truly open heart is that which is really without a center, that doesn't take for itself, that is actually truly available, that is not busy with what it's getting back, that is not polluted by survival instincts. It's love for love's sake. Is without a reason, without a motive, and most importantly, without an other. Love has no other. Sometimes we think, oh, I want to help others, you see? I want to help the world. What is the world? What are others? There is no such thing. There is no world. There's just a unified field in which there is no inner and no outer. We're just inventing them along the way. But really, when the heart is open, it sees that there is no other. And because of that, it is open, you see. Open means no barrier, no door, no separation. That's why the heart truly opens only thanks to meditation. Meditation in the broad sense, not meditation like in the very limited sense of, close your eyes, observe your sensations. It's not that. Meditation is this kind of awareness of my mind's nature. Awareness of my mind's nature is a return to my mind's nature. If I return to my mind's nature, the flower of love naturally blossoms. Because what we are, our true nature, our Buddha nature, is purity of being and love. These are two aspects of the same nature. So, well, if we started our satsang with the mind, perhaps now we can end it in the heart, you see? So let's just now close our eyes together to conclude the satsang, but this time not by looking at the mind, but perhaps looking into the heart and asking ourselves, does the heart have a shape? Does it have a form? Does it have a color? Does it have an edge, a boundary? If you're noticing any boundary, enter this boundary and let it open up. So it's been a pure joy to be together. Breathe together into our presence. Thank you for being here. Good night.